The escape pod shuddered violently as it breached Caridian's atmosphere. Captain Nora Vance gripped the controls, her knuckles white with effort. Warning lights flashed across the console as the small craft plummeted toward the planet's surface. Mayday. Mayday. This is Captain Nora Vance of the Terran Peace Envoy, she shouted into the comms. Our diplomatic vessel was attacked in orbit around Caridian. Coordinates unknown. Requesting immediate extraction. Only static answered her call. The ground rushed up to meet her, a blur of purple vegetation and jagged rock formations. Nora pulled back on the thrusters, desperately trying to level out. The pod skipped across a lake's surface before crashing into a dense thicket of bioluminescent trees. When consciousness returned, Nora found herself hanging upside down in her restraints. Blood trickled from a gash on her forehead and pain radiated from her left leg. She fumbled with the release catch and dropped unceremoniously to what was now the ceiling of the inverted pod. "Commander Patel? Lieutenant Shang?" she called out, then remembered they had taken different pods. She was alone. The emergency kit yielded a med patch for her leg and a handheld scanner. Outside, Caridian's twin moons cast an eerie blue glow across the alien landscape. The scanner picked up no human life signs, but something was moving in the underbrush nearby. Nora drew her pulse pistol and limped away from the crash site. The mission had been doomed from the start, an attempt at peace with a species that had been taught for generations to fear and hate humans. Now, here she was, stranded on their homeworld. A twig snapped behind her. Nora spun around, weapon raised. "Don't move, destroyer," came a low, melodic voice. From the shadows emerged a Caridian, taller than a human by nearly a foot, with iridescent copper skin that shimmered with bioluminescent patterns. The patterns shifted from red to yellow anger and suspicion, if Nora remembered her briefing correctly. Two curved horns framed a face with distinctly humanoid features, save for the large, reflective eyes that caught the moonlight. "I'm not armed," Nora lied, keeping her pistol behind her back. "I'm a diplomat." The Caridian made a sound between a laugh and a hiss. "Your kind has never sought peace. You come to fulfill the prophecy to bring ruin." "My ship was on a diplomatic mission," Nora insisted. "We were attacked in orbit by my people, yes. To prevent what you would bring." The Caridian stepped closer, revealing ceremonial markings across its chest and arms. "I am Jarrell, third son of the High Priest. I have studied your kind all my life. Then you should know we mean no harm." Jarrell's skin flickered briefly to blue uncertainty. "The prophecies are clear. Smooth-skinned ones will bring devastation." A distant explosion lit up the sky. Nora recognized the signature of Caridian plasma cannons. Another escape pod, perhaps. "Listen," she said urgently. "More ships will come looking for me. There will be conflict if I'm not found alive. Is that what you want?" Jarrell's patterns shifted rapidly, colors dancing across his skin. "You're injured," he finally said. "I can manage." "No." Jarrell's voice softened. "You cannot survive the venom beetles that emerge at second moonrise. Even if your wound doesn't slow you down, they will smell your blood." As if on cue, a high-pitched chittering rose from the forest floor. Jarrell hesitated, then extended a hand. "Come, there is shelter nearby." Nora eyed him warily. "Why would you help me?" "I wish to understand," he replied. "Before you are captured and executed, I wish to know if the prophecies speak truth." Not exactly comforting, but Nora had little choice. She holstered her weapon and took his offered hand. His skin was warm, almost hot to the touch, and surprisingly soft. "If I wanted to kill you," Jarrell added, "I would have done so already." As they moved through the forest, Nora noticed Caridian search parties in the distance, their torches creating constellations through the trees. Jarrell led her away from them, deeper into unknown territory. "Where are we going?" she whispered. "To the forgotten places," Jarrell answered. "Where neither your people nor mine will easily find us." Nora glanced back at her crashed pod, now barely visible in the distance. Universal locator beacon would still be transmitting. If any human ships were in range, they would come. Until then, She was in the hands of a creature raised to believe she was the embodiment of destruction. Yet as they fled together under alien moons, the gentle way Jarrell guided her around hazardous flora made Nora wonder if perhaps there was more to Caridian prophesying to Jarrell than either of them yet understood. Dawn broke over Caridian, the planet's red sun casting long shadows through a dilapidated structure nestled within a mountain crevasse. Nora leaned against a crumbling wall, watching as Jarrell examined the ancient murals that decorated the interior. "Is this place?" she asked, wincing, as she adjusted the med patch on her leg. "A forgotten shrine," Jarrell replied, his skin rippling with muted green patterns, fascination mixed with reverence. "Built during the Age of Enlightenment before the prophet Vaxer brought the doctrine of isolation." The chamber was massive, its ceiling lost in shadows. Stone pillars carved with intricate symbols supported what remained of the roof. But what caught Nora's attention were the faded images on the walls, Caridians and unmistakably human figures standing together. Hands joined. "This contradicts everything I've been taught," she said. Limping closer to the mural, Jarrell's patterns shifted to a troubled purple. "It contradicts much of what I've been taught as well." His voice had lost some of its earlier hostility. "Temple archives speak only of humans as harbingers of destruction, the smooth skins who would bring the end of days." Nora traced the outline of the mural with her fingertips. "Yet here we are, depicted as allies." "Perhaps this is why the High Council declared these shrines forbidden," Jarrell murmured. "They contain truths that challenge the doctrine." A sudden wave of dizziness overcame Nora, and she stumbled. Jarrell caught her before she hit the ground, his strong arms supporting her weight effortlessly. "Your wound is infected," he said, his large eyes reflecting concern. "Caridian air carries spores harmful to your kind." He helped her to a stone bench and knelt beside her. From a pouch at his waist, he withdrew a small vial containing a viscous amber liquid. "This will hurt," he warned, "but it will draw out the poison." Nora nodded, too weak to argue. When he applied the substance to her wound, the pain was immediate and intense. She bit down on her lip to keep from crying out, conscious of the search parties that might still be nearby. Jarrell's patterns shifted to a soft blue as he worked. "I was 16 cycles old when I first questioned the prophecies," he said, perhaps trying to distract her from the pain. "I found fragments of ancient texts in my father's private collection texts that spoke of humans differently." "What happened?" Nora asked through gritted teeth. "I was disciplined. Severely." His patterns darkened momentarily. "My father said curiosity about the destroyer race was the first step toward corruption." The medicine began to work, the burning sensation gradually replaced by numbing relief. Nora's breathing steadied, and she found herself studying Jarrell's face more closely. Despite his alien features, she recognized the expressions that crossed it: doubt, concern, curiosity. "Why did you help me?" she asked. "You could have turned me in, been rewarded." Jarrell was silent for a long moment. "Because when I saw you injured, alone you did not match the monster, I was raised to fear." His skin flickered with colors Nora couldn't interpret. "And because I am tired of living in fear of shadows I have never seen." A distant explosion shattered the moment. They both tensed, listening to the echoes reverberating through the mountains. "They're destroying your escape pod," Jarrell explained. "Erasing evidence of your arrival. My crew, ... Nora's voice trailed off. "If they landed in Tekran's territory, I fear for them." Jarrell's patterns shifted to a somber gray. "My brother does not share my curiosity, is a true believer in the prophecies." Nora attempted to stand, but Jarrell gently pressed her back down. "Rest. The medicine needs time." She reluctantly complied, watching as he moved around the chamber, examining ancient inscriptions with growing intensity. "These writings," he said after a while, "they speak of a time when our peoples shared knowledge. Before the Great Sundering." He turned to her, his skin pulsing with excitement. "Nora, what if everything the prophecies, the hatred is built on lies?" "Wouldn't be the first time fear was used to control people," she replied wearily. Jarrell knelt before her again, taking her hands in his. The intimacy of the gesture surprised her, but she didn't pull away. "There is a communication array at the Old observatory, he said urgently. If we can reach it, perhaps we can broadcast these images, these texts. Show my people the truth, or we could contact my ship, Nora countered. Get off this planet before your brother finds us. Jarrell's patterns dimmed. You would leave, without helping my people see the truth. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. But Nora felt a strange connection to this alien who had risked everything to help her. No, she said. Finally, I wouldn't. Outside, the sound of distant search parties grew louder. Jarrell moved to the entrance, peering cautiously out at the reddening sky. We'll leave at nightfall, he decided. The path to the observatory is treacherous even in daylight. But the search parties will not expect us to travel by night. As Nora watched him silhouetted against the dawn, she realized that in less than a day, this alien raised to see her as an enemy had become her only ally on this hostile world. And perhaps something more? Until then, Jarrell said, returning to her side, rest. I will keep watch. He settled beside her, his warmth radiating through the cool air of the shrine. Nora found herself leaning against him, drawing comfort from his presence as she drifted into an uneasy sleep filled with dreams of ancient murals and prophecies yet to be fulfilled. The observatory loomed against Caridian's night sky, a twisted spire of metal and stone perched atop a sheer cliff. Nora and Jarrell crouched in the undergrowth, studying the structure from a distance. 2 guards stood at the entrance, their ceremonial armor gleaming in the moonlight. Council guards, Jarrell whispered, his skin patterns dampened to near invisibility. They maintain a presence here, though few remember why. To control information, Nora suggested. Keep people from rediscovering what's inside. The past 2 days of travel had transformed their reluctant alliance into something deeper. Each night, as they made camp in hidden valleys or caves, they had shared stories of their worlds. Nora spoke of Earth's painful history of overcoming prejudice and fear. Jarrell described his childhood of rigid religious training and secret doubts. There's a maintenance tunnel, Jarrell said, pointing to a barely visible opening near the base of the cliff, used by technicians during the seasonal storms. They moved silently through the dense vegetation. Nora's leg had healed enough for her to walk without pain, thanks to Jarrell's continued treatments with Caridian medicine. As they reached the cliff face, Jarrell hesitated. Nora, if we succeed, everything changes. For my people. For me. Took his hand, feeling the now familiar warmth of his skin. Change was always coming, Jarrell. The universe is too vast for isolation to last forever. His patterns shifted to a deep indigo color she had come to recognize as a resolve. He squeezed her hand and led the way into the narrow tunnel. The passage was tight, forcing them to crawl in places. Nora followed Jarrell's luminescent patterns through the darkness until they emerged into a vast chamber filled with ancient technology. Curved screens lined the walls, and a massive crystal array dominated the center of the room. The ancestral archive, Jarrell breathed, said to contain all knowledge from before the Sundering. Nora approached one of the consoles, surprised too. Find its design intuitive, despite its alien origin. This technology, it's compatible with human interfaces. Because it was designed for both our species, Jarrell said, his excitement visible in the rapid fluctuation of his skin patterns. He placed his hand on a crystal panel. The room hummed to life. Images flooded the screen's historical records, scientific data, and most importantly, the truth about the prophecies. Nora watched in amazement as a recording played of an ancient Caridian priest Vaxer himself instructing his followers. The humans must be portrayed as monsters, the priest declared. Only through fear can we maintain control after the rebellion, create myths of destruction, speak of prophecies. Let no Caridian seek contact with the stars again. Arel stood, motionless, his patterns cycling through shock, anger, and grief. My entire life built on fabricated fear. Nora moved to his side, placing a hand on his shoulder. Your ancestors were afraid of losing power. It's an old story, played out on countless worlds. My father must have known, Jarrell said bitterly. The private texts he kept, he knew and perpetuated the lie. The question now, is what we do with this truth, Nora said. Jarrell turned to her, determination hardening his features. We broadcast it to every settlement on Caridian. They worked together at the console, Jarrell's knowledge of Caridian technology complementing Nora's tactical experience. As they prepared the transmission, their hands often brushed, lingering longer each time. This signal will reach the orbiting temples as well, Jarrell explained. Not even the High Council can prevent its spread. The tension and intimacy of the moment hung between them. Nora looked up to find Jarrell watching her, his skin glowing with a soft rose hue she had never seen before. What does that color mean? She asked quietly. Instead of answering, he drew her closer. A feeling with no name in your language, he murmured. His hand gently traced the contour of her face, as if memorizing every detail. Nora's heart raced as she leaned into his touch. The differences between them seemed to fade as his face lowered to hers. Their lips Metalian, yet familiar, strange yet right. His skin glowed brighter as they embraced, illuminating the chamber around them. When they finally parted, Jarrell's patterns pulsed with the same rose hue, more intense than before. That is what it means, he said softly. A sound at the entrance shattered the moment. They turned to see a tall Caridian figure silhouetted against the doorway, flanked by armored guards. How disappointing, brother, the figure said coldly. I had hoped the rumors of your treachery were exaggerated. Stepped protectively in front of Nora. Tekrin, this isn't what you think. No. Tekrin advanced into the room, his skin patterns flashing aggressive red. You betray your people by consorting with the Destroyer. You access forbidden knowledge. What exactly am I misunderstanding? The prophecies are lies, Jarrell declared. Created to control our people, the archives prove it. Tekrin's laugh was harsh. Truth is irrelevant. Power is what matters, and the prophecies give us power. His gaze shifted to Nora. As will your execution, Destroyer. Jarrell lunged for the console, pressing the final sequence to begin the broadcast. Guard fired, the energy blast catching him in the shoulder. Nora cried out, reaching for him as he fell. The last thing she saw before something struck the back of her head was Jarrell's skin glowing with that same rose hue, even as darkness claimed him too. Nora awoke in darkness, her head throbbing. Cold metal encircled her wrists, binding her to a stone wall. The air smelled of incense and Ozantha, great temple, she realized. The heart of Caridian religious power, the Destroyer awakens, came. A voice from the shadows, a hooded figure approached, taller than Jarrell or Tekrin, with deeply etched patterns across his face that barely glowed anymore. The High Priest, Jarrell's father. Where is Jarrell? Nora demanded, struggling against her restraints. My misguided son is receiving. Correction, the priest replied coolly. His mind has been poisoned by your human deceptions. The only deception is the one you've perpetuated for generations, Nora shot back. We saw the archives. The prophecies are fabrications created to control your people. The priest's expression remained impassive. Truth is malleable, Captain Vance. Yes, we know who you are. Your ship has been trying to contact us since your disappearance. He moved closer, studying her. How interesting that the first human to set foot on Caridian in centuries should be a woman of such determination. Our mission was peaceful, Nora insisted. Peace, he scoffed. Peace would mean the end of our way of life. It's the end of the Council's authority. So you'd rather live in isolation, bound by lies? The priest turned away. Prepare yourself. At dawn, you will fulfill the prophecy not as the Destroyer, but as the destroyed. Your execution will reinforce our doctrine for another generation. It's after he left. Nora tested her restraints methodically, finding no weakness. Hours passed in darkness, broken only by the occasional visit from silent guards. Eventually, the door opened again. This time, it was Tekrin who entered, his posture rigid with barely contained rage. Your broadcast reached half the settlements before we could block it, he said. Already there are disturbances in the outer provinces. Questions being asked. Despite her situation, Nora felt a surge of hope. People deserve the truth. Truth, Tekrin spat. My brother speaks of little else now, even as they prepare his punishment. He paced before her. Do you know what happens to heretics in our society, human? They are severed from the communal consciousness. Their patterns are burned away until they can no longer connect with their own kind. Horror washed over Nora as she understood. You're going to torture him. You're going to purify him, Tekrin corrected, though doubt flickered. Briefly in his patterns, as is our way. Is it your way? Or just another control mechanism created by those in power? Tekrin's patterns fluctuated erratically. You know nothing of our ways. I know Jarrell. I know he believes in a better future for Caridians, one not. Built on fear and lies. And what do you believe in, Destroyer? Tekrin asked, suddenly curious. Why risk your life for a world not your own? Nora met his gaze steadily. Because I've seen what fear of the other can do. Because walls between people's, whether they're built of stone or propaganda, always fall eventually. And because your brother showed me that connections can form across any difference when we stop letting fear rule us. Something in Tekrin's demeanor shifted. You care for him? He observed. A human caring for a Caridian. How? Unprecedented. Before Nora could respond, alarms blared throughout the temple. Tekrin rushed to the door, barking orders to guards outside. What's happening? Nora called after him. Tekrin paused, looking. Back with confusion in his patterns. Your ship has entered orbit and is demanding your release. And... There are riots in the Central District. It seems my brother's message spread further than we thought. He left her alone with this news, the door sealing behind him. Nora renewed her efforts against the restraints, driven by fresh urgency. Somewhere. In this temple, Jarrell was facing torture for standing with her, for believing in truth. Hours later, when the door opened again, Nora was ready to face another interrogator. Instead, a slender Caridian female slipped inside, her patterns muted. Too near invisibility. I am Celine, she whispered, hurriedly working on Nora's restraints. Jarrell and I studied together as children. He always questioned everything. The locks clicked open, many of us did, in secret. Where is he? Nora asked, as she rubbed her freed wrists. In the purification chamber. We must hurry. Others are. Creating a diversion, they slipped through dimly lit corridors, avoiding patrols. Celine led Nora deep into the temple complex, 2 levels that seemed ancient and rarely used. The resistance has existed for generations, Celine explained softly. Those who found fragments of truth, who questioned the doctrine. Jarrell became our inspiration when he began openly challenging the council years ago. They reached a heavily guarded door. Before Nora could ask how they would get past, explosions rocked the temple. The guards rushed toward the disturbance, leaving their post. Inside the chamber, Jarrell hung suspended in a field of energy, his body convulsing as patterns were forcibly altered across his skin. Dora rushed to the control panel desperately, trying to decipher the alien technology. Here Celine guided her hands to the correct sequence. The field dissipated, and Jarrell collapsed. Nora caught him, cradling his weakened form. His patterns were faint, flickering erratically. Nora, he whispered, his voice hoarse. You came. Of course I did, she replied, fighting back tears. We started this together. His hand weakly touched. Her face, the truth, is spreading, she assured him. Your people are rising up. My ship is here. Hope flickered in his patterns, strengthening them slightly. As they helped him to his feet, the chamber door burst open. Tekrin stood there, weapon raised, but instead of firing, he lowered it slowly. The council chambers have been breached, he said, his voice strangely calm. Father is calling for reinforcements from the provinces, but many are refusing to come. He looked at his brother with complex emotions playing across his patterns. You were right about the archives. I accessed them myself after your capture. Jarrell stared at his brother in disbelief. And help us, Tekrin. Help your people find a new path. Tekrin's patterns shifted through rapid cycles of conflict before settling into a determined blue. The main hangar, Bay 7, shuttle is prepared. For the council's escape, take it I will, delay the guards. As they moved past him, Tekren caught Jarrell's arm. The prophecies may have been created as tools of control, brother, but some prophecies create themselves. His gaze shifted too. Nora, perhaps the destroyer was meant to destroy not our people, but our chains. The shuttle bay teemed with activity as council members and their loyal guards prepared for evacuation. Hiding behind cargo containers, Nora, Jarrell, and Celine watched as the high priest directed operations, his elaborate robe sweeping the floor as he paced. "My father will not surrender power easily," Jarrell whispered, his patterns still weak but steadier than before. "Even faced with truth, he chooses escape over change." Nora's communicator suddenly activated. A signal from her ship had finally penetrated the temple's shielding. Commander Patel's voice came through, tinny but clear. "Captain Vance, do you copy? We've established contact with Caridian Resistance. Forces extraction team is en route to your position." "Copy that," Nora replied quietly. "Be advised, situation is volatile. Temple complex is under siege from within and without." Jarrell touched her arm. "Nora, this isn't just about escape anymore. My father carries data crystals of indices he'll use to rebuild his power elsewhere. We need those crystals." Celine nodded in agreement. The full archives would give our people back their history. A plan formed quickly. As council members boarded, their escape vessel, Nora and Celine, circled around to approach from behind a fuel depot. Jarrell, still weak from the purification attempt, would create a distraction at the opposite end of the hangar. When Jarrell's voice suddenly rang out, amplified by the hangar's acoustics, all heads turned. He stood atop a loading platform, his patterns glowing with renewed strength. "Father," called out, "will you flee rather than face the truth? Will you abandon your people rather than admit your doctrine is built on lies?" The high priest turned, rage contorting his features. "You are no son of mine," he snarled. "Guards, silence this heretic." In the ensuing chaos, Nora slipped behind the council members, targeting the case clutched in the high priest's hand. With precision born of years of training, she struck a quick blow to the priest's arm, another to his guard's solar plexus. The case clattered to the floor. Celine scooped it up as Nora provided covering fire with a commandeered weapon. They retreated toward Jarrell's position as temple guards closed in from multiple directions. Suddenly, the hangar doors exploded inward. Through the smoke strode human soldiers in Terran Peace Corps armor, led by Commander Patel herself, Captain Vance. Patel called out, "Time to go." The extraction team formed a defensive perimeter, creating a path toward their shuttle. Nora grabbed Jarrell's hand, pulling him along. "Come with us," she urged. Jarrell hesitated, looking back at the chaos his father's face twisted with hatred. At Celine holding the precious data crystals. At the Caridian citizens who had fought their way into the temple complex and now stood witnessing the confrontation. "I can't leave," he said finally. "My people need to rebuild. They need guidance through this transition." Pain lanced through Nora's heart, but she understood. Their worlds were still separate, despite all they had discovered together, as if sensing. Her thoughts, Jarrell's patterns shifted to that now familiar rose hue. "But this is not goodbye, Nora Vance. This is only the beginning." The high priest's voice cut through the moment. "You betray everything our ancestors built," he shouted at Jarrell. "For what?" "For her. For a destroyer." Jarrell turned to face his father. "She destroyed nothing but the lies you used to control us. Our ancestors built connections with humans' connections. You severed with your false prophecies." He gestured to the Caridians who had gathered, their patterns showing a rainbow of emotions. "Look around you, Father. Your people want truth. They want freedom to choose their own path." The high priest looked at the faces surrounding him, not just guards and council members, but ordinary citizens, scholars, even some of the younger priests. Their patterns showed resolve, curiosity, hope, emotions the doctrine had long sought. To suppress, his shoulders sagged, the fight visibly leaving him. "Then let judgment fall upon me," he said quietly. "But remember, when chaos comes from freedom, who it was that kept order." Tekren stepped forward from among the crowd. "There will be justice, Father, but not vengeance. We'll build something better than fear." Commander Patel approached Nora. "Captain, we need to leave now. Orbital security's temporarily disabled, but not for long. Nora nodded, then turned back to Jarrell. Words seemed inadequate for all they had shared, all they had changed together. He solved the problem by drawing her into an embrace, his skin glowing so brightly it cast shadows across the hangar floor. When they parted, he pressed something. Into her hand, a small crystal embedded in a pendant. "So you remember," he said softly, "the barriers between worlds are often of our own making." "I don't need a reminder," she replied, touching his face one last time, "but I'll treasure it anyway." As the Terran shuttle lifted off, Nora watched through the viewport as Jarrell stood among his people, his patterns visible, even from a distance, strong, clear, and honest. Around him, other Caridians' patterns began to synchronize, not in the forced uniformity of doctrine, but in the harmony of shared purpose. Commander Patel settled into the seat beside her. "You want to tell me what happened down there, Captain? How you turned a diplomatic disaster into what looks like a revolution?" Nora smiled, her fingers tracing the crystal pendant. "We found truth buried under centuries of fear. We set it free." 3 months later, Nora stood before the Interspecies Council on Earth, concluding her testimony about the events on Caridian. "The provisional government has formally requested diplomatic relations," she reported. "They've dismantled the religious council and are working to reintegrate ancient knowledge into their education systems." "And the resistance leader, this Jarrell, he now heads their diplomatic corps?" asked one of the counselors. "He does," Nora confirmed, unable to keep a slight smile from her face. "His first delegation arrives next month." As the session concluded, Nora stepped out onto the observation deck overlooking Earth's gleaming capital city. In the evening sky, stars were beginning to appear, countless worlds, countless possibilities. Her communicator chimed with an incoming transmission. Familiar voice filled her ear, accompanied by the soft glow of a holographic image Jarrell, his patterns shifting through colors that needed no translation. "The stars look different from my world," he said, "but they lead to the same places." Nora smiled, touching the crystal pendant at her throat. "And sometimes they lead us home." In the growing twilight, Earth's lights mingled with the stars above, boundaries blurring between worlds just as the boundaries between two beings from different planets had dissolved in the face of truth and connection. The prophecy had been fulfilled after all, but not as anyone had expected. A destroyer had come. But what had been destroyed were only the walls built of fear and lies, and in their place, something new had begun to grow.